Between 2014 and 2020, I lost 8 loved ones, my stepsister and my stepfather and my biological father and my father-in-law. I was just constantly buzzing with anxiety. I was stressed out. I was filled with grief. I was doom scrolling and kept coming across the same ad for watercolor lessons online. That first lesson, I immediately felt so much peace, like just washed through me. So in a short 5 years, my whole life completely changed because I decided to do something for myself that had no deliverable to anybody else.
How do you work to move forward? Welcome to Midlife Catalyst, a place where ordinary people share extraordinary stories of doing life differently. I'm Amanda Younts, and I'm excited to learn more about today's guest, as I feel like we have a lot in common, and I'm ready to dive in. Jamie Townsend is a Southern California-based writer and professional artist whose watercolor paintings have earned international recognition. Her essays and microfiction have been published in Light magazine and Fairfield Scribes. Jamie's debut novel, Absorbed, which you can see behind her on her bookshelf, will be released in early 2025. When Jamie's not in her studio, she can be found at the beach with her family and their dogs or listening to live music. Jamie is here to discuss how one of the hardest periods in her life turned into one of the greatest moments of growth and dream achievement for her. Jamie, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Amanda. I'm so glad to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Yes, absolutely. And let's just dive in with, how we even got to this point. I could start small and go, I love the beach and live music, but I'm like, let's cut to it. Let's talk about the hard times and how you got here into this place in life.
Absolutely. I've listened to a lot of episodes of your show, and I know that you've gone through plenty of difficult times yourself. Probably a lot of your listeners have. For me, I had gotten to a stage in life after having sacrificed my career to be a stay-at-home mom, and pretty much all of my own personal pursuits were put on hold. And right when I thought that I was going to come back to it and get back on track with my career, so many of my loved ones started becoming terminally ill. And I spent about 6 years really just giving everything to my extended family in every way I could to support them. So between 2014 and 2020, I lost 8 loved ones, including my stepsister and my stepfather and my biological father and my father-in-law. And it was a really emotionally draining time to also be young, raising young children and completely supporting our whole household while my husband had and still does have a very demanding job. And by the time we got to 2020, and my stepfather passed away in January of 2020, I was just constantly buzzing with anxiety. I was stressed out. I was filled with grief. I was definitely seeking therapy and getting exercise. I have great girlfriends that I could talk to, but nothing was really filling my cup again the way that I needed it to. And then the pandemic hit, and like everybody else, man, my socks were knocked off. Like I had not anticipated that my whole family would then be in the house with me all the time again. And we had a new puppy that was a pandemic puppy. And I had no idea that was going to be the case. He came home on March 7th, and March 13th, the world shut down. And yeah, everything was about everyone else, and including, protecting my family from this big bad virus in the world. And nothing was about me and my needs. And I was frankly very lost, and I was doom scrolling and kept coming across the same ad for watercolor lessons online, and that they had free watercolor lessons on YouTube, and you could just use whatever supplies you had. And I, on a whim, just thought, why not? What else do I have going on, right? So I decided to try watercolor out. And that first lesson, I immediately felt so much peace, like just washed through me, spending just time focused on a beautiful image with no deliverable to anyone else in the world. It was just for myself. I was just doing this little activity for myself. And that began a shift for me that over the next several months, I started painting more regularly. And then I started painting every day. And by the end of 2020, I was painting several hours every day. And so that sort of launched my becoming a professional artist. But also my whole brain just, it was like lit up again. And everything that I had that were passions of mine started coming back. And I had always wanted to write a book. I had always wanted to be a professional author. And I suddenly, now that I was finding time, because frankly, the world didn't stop being hard. Life didn't stop being hard. People didn't, suddenly stop getting sick in the middle of the pandemic. I had all the same demands, but I had the energy to respond to everything. And I had the energy to pursue things for myself again, because I was filling that cup again. That I decided I wanted to go back and to get my master's degree. And 15 months later, I had graduated with all A's, and I had the first 10,000 words of my novel started. And then I spent about a year and a half completely editing and revising it. And then fast forward, this January, as you shared in my bio, my book came out. So in a short 5 years, my whole life completely changed because I decided to do something for myself that had no deliverable to anybody else. And it changed everything.
Oh my goodness. And so much courage in those decisions, because the outside world, and maybe even some people in your household, I don't know, you can speak to that. And, they want performance, they want outcomes, they want results. And so when I say I'm writing for fun, well, that's a waste of time. We should be earning money, right? And it's like, well, I may ultimately do that following this passion, following watercoloring, whatever your passion is, but those things get squelched when there isn't an immediate reward or gratification. So how did you kind of circumvent that or face any of that?
I think in my case, for my family, just to begin with my family, they saw me light up again in a positive way. And that was worth it just for everybody around me to see the old happy me come back. I had more energy, but I just had a more positive outlook on the world when I started to matter in it again, the way that I really needed to. By showing up for myself, I could really show them also how to show up for themselves. And then, I think really the deliverable in terms of, I hope I don't give the wrong impression. I'm so proud that my book came out and I love my book, but people who choose to write a novel, especially their first novel, are not going to make a lot of money. So this was never going to be like a barn burner to become an author the first time out. Anybody who pursues creative arts has to know that there's a lot you pour of yourself into it, and you may not get a lot back from it at the beginning. It really, you just have to keep going, regardless of whether you ever make money at it or not, just because you love it. I am in a fortunate position that my family was able to afford for me to be home all those years, and I didn't have to earn an income. I know that that's not the case for your listeners necessarily. I don't want to pretend that, everybody can just suddenly drop everything and start painting for several hours a day and have the resources to get the materials. But I do think that everybody can find that 15 minutes to start filling their cup again. And I think that it can be the difference for a lot of people like me, who need to put themselves on that priority list again, even if that maybe won't lead them to a career that they pursue it the way that I've had the opportunity to do so, but at least it will be fulfilling that that passion that they have within them that they haven't been feeding. Yes. So yeah, it's a big shift for people who are givers, who are caretakers, who pour themselves into everybody every day. And at least for me, I am sure anybody else who's, my children are now 18 and 16. But back in 2020, we still had one in elementary school. I had spent all those elementary school years as like room mom and PTA mom. And I promise you, if you are giving of yourself, the world will take every last minute of that time that they can take. Yes. And I had to learn to start saying, I matter as much as putting staples in these, packets for the teacher. Like, I belong on my priority list in a way that I haven't been showing up. So, yeah.
And I think that is so hard to do because I didn't have kids. I mean, I was in education, so I took care of a lot of people's kids, but of having, the deaths, and when you're taking care of aging parents, grandparents, but you had both ends. So this is something that I'm like, this is not talked about enough. I don't feel like our generation was warned. You're going to be raising kids and caring for potentially aging parents. Like, you're hit at both ends there. So if you don't create the space and the time for you, one end or the other is going to consume it.
Absolutely. So, I mentioned I lost all those loved ones, but that wasn't everybody. So it didn't change. This year, my mother needed to move from her home of 26 years into a retirement community. And I'm in charge of her finances, and I was in charge of selling her house. And that was all happening while my daughter's a senior in high school, applying to colleges, and my other daughter's on the basketball team. That is all happening simultaneously. And then my mother-in-law had a stroke and passed away, and we had to plan her funeral as my book is launching and I'm trying to do book signings. The world is going to keep moving. These hard things are going to keep happening. And yes, for Gen X, even some of the older millennials, we really are stuck right now between the demands of our boomer parents and the demands of our children who are not able to be independent yet. Even my 18-year-old who, in less than 2 weeks, I'm moving her across the country to go to college. It's going to be several years before she can financially truly support herself. So the demands on my time and my family's finances and getting her to and from school on all the breaks and this is a constant. And if I don't show up for me, nobody else will. So I think I love that that's sort of the premise of your whole podcast is, there are catalysts in our lives where it's like, if I don't stop this path that I'm on, I'm really going to run myself into the ground. I'm really never going to find the joy that I deserve in this one short life I get.
Yes, that's so true. And the joy is the piece that I think as women and women in midlife, we feel like it's a badge of honor to not have it. I've seen it so many times of we can burn down everyone else. I mean, burn down and take care of everyone else. And that's the sticking point. And it's like, where is the joy? Because life is short, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm getting joy from just looking at your book cover. So let's dive into that because it's beautiful. I love it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's
Yeah.
very fun to be an artist and an author because then you get to really be directly involved in the design of the cover and see your whole vision come. I loved that when we started this conversation too, you said, let's dive in because my book is about a lifeguard in the 90s. So yeah, she is definitely diving in.
Yes. So say more about that. Is it based on your history?
So as a Gen Xer, I was a teenager in the 90s. And as I was coming up with what I wanted my novel to be about, I was raising teenage girls. I was around teenage girls all the time. And I was really empathizing with the struggles that they are going through right now, but also through the lens of what it was like 30 years ago. And so I started to think about how I could tell a story that it could appeal to both current teenagers and their parents in a way that could open up those dialogues and really get them to talk about things because it brings in the nostalgia. It's set in 1996. It's very much, Baywatch meets Clueless at the community pool. And there's all the fun pop culture of the 90s in it. But it talks about some pretty heavy topics that are very relevant to our teenagers today. It talks about sexual consent. It talks about experimentation with drugs and alcohol. In the 90s, those of us who were growing up back then, there were Planned Parenthoods being bombed. It's an issue that our society still struggles with now, whether abortion is okay or not okay, what the church has to say about it, and what individual families decide about these kinds of things. And so my book really talks about a lot of these issues in a way that I hoped would really get both the parents and the teens to say, even though we didn't have cell phones and the internet then, your body issues are the same body issues we were dealing with back then. No girl likes putting on a bathing suit and imagining standing in front of her crush and feeling like she's gonna, rule the world that way. It's hard. It's hard to be a teenage girl. It's hard to go down this road of understanding your body and the challenges of being independent in the world, and what to say yes to and where to draw boundaries. All of those things are hard. So that's what my book is really about. It's a story. It's a coming of age story. And it was a lot of fun to live in that world. I enjoyed listening to the music. There's a playlist that if somebody wants to, listen to the playlist at the same time, there's a playlist that goes with it. But I built Pinterest boards. I felt like these characters could have been my best friends. I did happen to be a lifeguard in the 90s, so I was drawing on a little bit of experience with that, but it's a completely fictional story. So,
well, I am always down for a good playlist, and as most people know, most of my music comes from the 90s because I still think it's some of the best music out there, and it's so funny how the teens these days have brought so much of that back. And I'm like, are we really that old that? But I'm glad it's relevant. So.
Oh yeah, my kids. We took our kids to see Blink 182. I can't wait to see No Doubt again. My first show that I ever went to was No Doubt, and definitely they play a big role in the book, but also, bands that haven't really come back that like Chris Isaak, right? Chris Isaak was like the Wicked
Huge.
Game. Mm-hmm. That was like the sexiest MTV video at the time. And what that whole, perfume ad about being on the beach. And that's basically what his video was like. And that's the impression teenage girls got about what romance was supposed to be. Right. And Claudia Schiffer and Nikki Crawford and all these girls. So our girls have different females that they look to, but they're all getting these impressions constantly of what it means to be a woman and what it means to fall in love and what romance is supposed to look like. And so, yeah, if you want to escape back into the 90s and see what it was like, but also through a lens of how to have more compassion for our current teenagers and really open up some of those conversations, you should check out Absorbed for sure.
Yes, absolutely. What did your family think of the book? I mean, obviously they're going to be supportive and love it, but what were their responses?
I've had such overwhelming support. My girls, a lot of their girlfriends have read the book. They've encouraged everybody to check it out. My nephew, who's 16, actually read it as outside reading in his honors English class. And I think that the biggest thing in terms of the support that I've had from my immediate family is just, I went from being, yes, I have a great relationship with my girls. I've been, their everything, but I went from being their everything and staying their everything to also accomplishing my dreams alongside of that, and them witnessing that and them seeing that you can do everything if you really want to. Like, they saw me get up at 4 a.m. to do my essays for my master's program. They saw me walk across that stage to get my master's degree. They saw me, up late and working in carpool line on edits on my book and, sending query letters off to agents. And they saw that when you believe in something, you can accomplish it. You don't have to put yourself on the back burner forever. So I think that was the biggest thing for me with my family was I was proving to them that their dreams are possible because I was making mine a reality.
Do you think it helped open up dialogue and conversations with your girls? I just hear from so many parents of, I don't know how to talk to my kids. They're buried in their phone, right? All these things. And so I'm just always looking for avenues to support parents that way.
I think it absolutely did open up conversations with me and my girls. And I will regularly say, like, there's this scene I wrote, and the reason I wrote it is because I see you or your friends going through this experience. Let's talk about it. And as I even have been invited to participate in book clubs. There was a book club a couple months ago of boy moms where they read my book, and they actually said, I want my son to read this book because it reminded me of situations where I was maybe on a date with a boy in a car and I was afraid to say no. And they're like, I want to have the conversation with my son that not saying no is not the same as saying yes, because it makes it so real on what these girls are going through. This like, there is a natural desire in these situations. It's hard. Your body is telling you one thing and your brain is telling you something else. And there's pressure from this person you're with who you really like. And so it really has opened up a lot of very valuable conversations. And I'm so grateful that it has, because I think they need to happen. And I think too often parents today are expecting their kids to learn this stuff through their phones. And that is not the right way to get the information.
Not at all. No. It's the right way to get the wrong information, if that. So, yeah, I just think being willing and brave enough to be open and share. You have to be vulnerable and share that you struggled and that, our lives weren't perfect growing up either, and look how well you turned out.
Yeah, I think all kids are going to make big mistakes. That's a big lesson in the book. Is she's a smart kid who makes really terrible decisions. All teenagers do, and the question is whether the relationship between the parents and the kids is capable of getting through those together, or you're going to expect your kid to figure it out on their own. And I guarantee the kids that are stuck figuring it out on their own will not come through unscathed. They're gonna struggle for a long time. And if they can have the help of their parents figuring out the right way to put one foot in front of the other and get out of the big mess that they've gotten themselves into, everybody will be better off for it, and the relationship will be stronger as a result. So getting to write a parent who is a single mom who's struggling and still manages to show compassion to her daughter and help her get out of the mess she got herself into was a really enjoyable experience also. And I think it showed my kids that I do understand how bad things can get, how awful the decisions can become, and how to show compassion in that situation as well.
And compassion is so key. Something I think a lot of us struggle with self-compassion. We're extremely compassionate with our kids, with our loved ones, but the self-compassion is hard and a struggle.
It's true.
How do you have?
Yeah, I think I've heard you talk about even some struggles over the years with eating issues. A lot of women are familiar with that. And also I've heard you talk a little bit about dealing with sobriety. And I think that is a way that a lot of us deal with our issues of not showing ourselves compassion as we try to escape it through food, exercise, drink, whatever it may be. I think showing compassion to myself started with that 15 minutes every day, and it grew from there with I deserve this. If I'm gonna have joy in my life, it's gonna have to start with me giving myself the time to do it.
Yes. A lot of those areas, just bringing back the 90s, man, the stick figures and the images that were thrown at us. It just, all of that body image stuff to me was, I've read multiple articles about how that trend is really circled back around now for the current generation and girls. And it just looks different, but it's the same thing. We haven't really gotten better. It just looks different.
Right. Yeah, airbrushing used to only happen on, the magazines, and now the girls know how to airbrush themselves. But that means on a daily basis, they are looking at pictures of themselves and saying, I'm not good enough as I am. And it's really hard to get out of that mindset that like you are perfectly fine just as you are. You do not need to show up as any version of perfection for anyone else in this world. And to teach that to our young daughters is really important. But the world is not helping them learn that lesson. So the more we can get the phone set down and have the open conversations about it and say, I really understand you. I struggled with this myself. Let's talk about it. Let's connect on how we can work through this together.
Yeah. And the talking about it is so important, because that's where a lot of the hiding, the masking starts of, I can't tell anyone this, I can't look vulnerable, I can't share the struggles. So then it gets worse instead of better, that protective mode.
And all of that is rooted in a sense of shame that's been taught to us. And the sooner we can really shed that shame, that like every person in this world struggles with things about the way they look, struggles with things about the way maybe they present themselves in the world. And the more we can just say, there's no reason to be ashamed of this. Let's just get through it. Let's take it each little thing at a time. The less we'll need to hide and mask. The shame is all at the root of that. I'm a big advocate for like anything that causes shame. Like, no, we gotta shut that down first. Like, let's go upriver, whatever you have that's causing you shame. Let's just bring it out in the open. Let's talk about it. There's nothing you can't share with me for sure.
Well, I'm just going to say one of my biggest sources of shame is art because I love the beautiful art. I have zero artistic ability. I wish I did because I'm so envious of your paintings behind you. So, where did that love come from with getting you to watercolor?
I've always enjoyed and appreciated art. I was lucky. My grandmother was a brilliant and artistic woman who, even though she was a stay-at-home mom of 4 kids, she had her master's in mathematics and her master's in art. And one of my 2 aunts from that family was also an English teacher and an artist. And my stepsister was also an artist, but I never thought I was artistic. If people asked me, I would say I'm crafty. Like I was a Girl Scout and I was a Girl Scout leader and I was a mom and MOPS mom and everything. Like I can do crafty things. I can do DIY stuff. And then what I found was, I found my medium, and I think everybody has a medium. So some people may find that their medium is pressing flowers, not drawing with a pencil or painting with a brush, but maybe finding beautiful flowers and pressing them and creating from that. Some people, their medium is their voice and they create with their voice. Or my husband is incredibly talented with spreadsheets. His medium is spreadsheets. He can do anything with a spreadsheet. And I think I've shared this before that, fear, grief, anxiety, all of those are things that draw us inward and they tell us to hide from the world, shame, to really pull inward. But creativity is an outward expression. It helps us to come out and spread out all of the joy and share it outward. And so it doesn't matter what your medium is, to find any way to creatively express yourself. Even a journal. I happen to journal every single day. I learned that from the Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way, is just getting those thoughts out of my head, 3 pages every day. That is a form of expression that is outward, that is going to help heal you from the inside out and really draw you away from that hiding, shame, grief stuff. So you just got to find your medium. Yeah. I don't think that there's any way that you are not a creative person. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to do what you're doing if you weren't. And so it's just about finding your medium.
Absolutely. And I say this a lot, is I didn't think I was. And then when people were like, well, but you're writing. And so I was like, okay, that is my medium. I am impressed, though, that you do 3 pages a day. I've heard people that can do it, and there are some days, don't get me wrong, I can do it, but it's I'm envious.
I think everybody has their rage on a page days, right, where they could write a whole book's worth of things because they need to get it out somehow.
Yes. So what does your writing routine look like? Your morning pages routine?
My morning pages, my husband works in finance, so his alarm goes off very early in the morning. So I usually can't fall back asleep after that anyway. So I get up, I make my cup of coffee, and I immediately sit down in my office space, but not at my desk. I kind of, like, if I'm going to work, I sit at my desk, and when I want to just let my musing brain explore, I sit in this big comfy chair I have in my corner. So I sit down with my coffee and I grab my journal and I just pour out. And I have the greatest hope that those will be burned when I die or when I am not able to do it, and that nobody will read them, because there's a lot of complaining in them. There is a lot of routines, like I have to take the dogs to the vet today, and I don't want to go to the vet today, but I have to get this done. There's a lot of complaining. But I promise you, because I'm putting that on a piece of paper, it's freeing up my headspace and my bandwidth for all of the creative thought that needs to have space to come in. If I'm constantly thinking about the dry cleaning and the grocery shopping and all of that, my brain doesn't have the bandwidth for the creativity too. So I do that first thing in the morning. I sit down and I do my 3 pages. I read the news, and then I do the New York Times puzzles. I do like 4 of those puzzles every day. And I do drawing exercises that are, I consider literal exercises. Like if you were to have a personal trainer at the gym who told you you need to do this many reps of this and this, that's not very creative, right? But it helps you get stronger and better. So I follow an artist online who does daily drawing challenges. And so I don't even have to think about it. She has her daily challenge and I just do it. I just 15 minutes where I'm just sketching in my little book, and I watercolor it. And then I'm like set up for the day. And that probably takes about an hour of my time to do all of those things: the journaling, the drink my coffee, the drawing exercises, and the news and the puzzles. But I am set up. My brain is like ready to do anything. I can sit down and paint a portrait of a dog or a landscape of Venice, or I can write a chapter of a book because my brain is ready. I'm primed. I've done all that I needed to do to get there.
I love that. I love the dog painting. That's
Yes, I have 2 dogs. I do walk them every day, and I get a lot of inspiration from doing that. And then I do some pet portraits as I donate them to support local nonprofits. So it's a fun outlet.
So what are things that you do, I'll just say, when this doesn't work? If there's a day, because it happens,
Of course.
that it's you're just not on. How do you work to move forward?
I give myself grace and space. So like I shared earlier with my older daughter moving away in a couple weeks, this is a big transition in my life. And we did lose my mother-in-law this year, and that was a big moment of grief. So when we got through the school year and into the summer, I really have given myself a lot of grace. I have a project, writing a next book that I plan to put a lot of energy into this fall, but I've given myself a lot of space and grace this summer to just be present, to really let my feelings be felt, focus on time with my kids, and especially, talking about what we need for the dorm room for my older daughter, just being there with her. Last night we watched Hamilton. I really, I think that it's not going to do a service to me or my output in that next project if I try to force it when I'm not mentally and emotionally ready to do so. So giving myself grace to get through the season of whatever it is. And I just finished moving my mom into her house in May also. So it's, I needed this summer. I really needed to like have a good 6 weeks of not focusing on a deliverable to anybody, really. Just if I wanted to create, I did. And if I didn't, I didn't. And that's okay.
And that is so great, because what I hear so often from people, and I see from people that I work with, is, well, if I just do more and I just push harder, we'll accomplish whatever it is, rather than minimize, eliminate, and be present. I love that you said that. Like, just be present is also a thing kids are really seeking these days.
Yeah. I think it's important for everybody to recognize, there's parts of life that we don't get to check out of, that we have to show up and we have to push through. But when it comes to the things that are optional, the things that maybe can wait, I think it's better to really let ourselves sit in the, I call it with my kids, sit in the suck, right? Like the thing, like when you feel really icky about something, you got to kind of sit in it. You got to let yourself process it rather than push through it, because it's like trying to skateboard in the mud. You're not going to get anywhere, and it's not going to be very productive. It's not going to be worthwhile to anybody, and it's probably going to cause more damage in the long run than it's worth.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So what are your favorite, outside of your own book, what are some of your go-to books?
Oh gosh, I'm a big historical fiction fan, so I've always been like a Kristen Hanna fan. I enjoy her books, like The Women, The Nightingale. I also I love comedians. I love self help kind of. Like I like Adam Grant books are really enjoyable, and give me great insight into things. Yeah, I read a lot, because I enjoy long walks, and so I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I've been in a little bit of a slump. I haven't totally loved a lot of the books that I've read, but one that I recently was my book club chose to read, and I had already read it, so I read it again. That I just felt like is a book everybody should read, is The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell. It's just so beautifully written, and it's so inspiring, and about a young boy with red eyes, and it's definitely one to check out.
All right. I'll have to look into that. I know I've seen it. I
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I am very much along the lines of Adam Grant and the self-help, and then I burn myself out. I'm like, you need to actually read for pleasure, and enjoyment, and not trying to fill your brain. So
It's interesting. I go through these, like I'll read too many World War II books, and I'm kind of burnt out on that. Like I need something happy for a little while, and then too many self-help. But it's nice because I can connect with like my husband. There are books that we'll both read that maybe he'll even recommend to his colleagues that are more along those lines. So
yes. Okay, let's move over to music, because I know you've got a playlist for your book and you love live music. What's your go-to song or artist?
Oh, I mean, I don't know that I could pick a single artist, but like tonight, I'm happen to be going to see the Lumineers. They are a great band that we saw at the Hollywood Bowl a couple of years ago, and my daughter, it was her favorite concert she'd ever been to, so she begged if we would go see the Lumineers again. So we're going tonight. We just hit one of our bucket lists was going to Red Rocks, and we saw Mumford and Sons at Red Rocks. It was amazing. I'm so glad we did that as a family while my older daughter was still here. But I love 90s music, and I live in Southern California, so I'm so excited. We are going to see Oasis at the Rose Bowl in a few weeks. That is so exciting. I love Oasis, and it's been too long since I've seen them. And we go, my husband and I are House of Blues members, and so we go to a lot of shows locally at the House of Blues. But one that we see all the time is a punk band called The Vandals, and they do this Christmas show every year, and it's just a lot of fun. It's just, very like, there's something really entertaining about seeing a band of grown men who wrote these songs when they were 15, 16, 17 years old about getting broken up with by girls or rejected. And then now they're in their 50s and they're singing the same songs, but they're having so much fun still doing it. And they're still wearing their Converse. And we go to a lot of punk shows and have a lot of fun watching them.
I love it. I love it. I am super jealous of Red Rocks. I was supposed to go in 2020. Obviously, that didn't happen, and I've never rebooked that. And so it's one of the few venues I haven't been to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so worth it. It is a beautiful venue. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. That's high on the to-do list. So, where can people find you and connect?
Well, I do have a website, jamietownsend.com. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram. I am on TikTok and Threads, although I haven't been as prevalent there lately. But you can find me all those places. And if you want to check out my book, it's available on all the places you can buy books, the big online Amazon, Barnes and Noble, whatever. But I am also a huge advocate of having independent bookstores on Main Street, having well-stocked libraries in every town. And if you go and you ask your independent bookstore to order it or your local library to order it, they will. It's amazing. And you're supporting them so that they can stay open, and you're also supporting me. So I would love that. It's also on, there's an audiobook version that is fantastic with an award-winning audiobook performer, and I definitely am a big audiobook listener, so that was a priority of mine. And on my website, if you go to my website, there's even a book trailer that was put together by some students in my older daughter's film and television class that I swear these kids are going to be the directors of tomorrow. They are so talented. So you can check that out too.
Okay. I am so weird, I know. As much as I love podcasts, I cannot do an audiobook at all. And I really struggle even to just have a Kindle. Like, I want the book, right? But
the paper book, yeah.
I do. I like to mark it up and tab it. And that's really a problem when you're a nomad and you have an entire trailer full of books. But if I know the person or it's a famous person, so every time I read a Brene Brown book, I read it in her voice.
Oh, yes.
But I'm not gonna have the audiobook. Is there a way to flip the script? I know, because I think I miss out on books because I'm not turning it on in the car or on a walk, and then it's like, well, I just didn't have time to read it.
I never would have thought that I was an audio learner because I still am a note taker. I very much believe that I retain information when I write it down. And for that reason, I loved paper books that I could write notes in and things like that as well. But I found for me, the big difference was the speed. And when I have it on double speed, I actually retain it. It was just that the regular audio speed was too slow. And so I was getting distracted. I don't know, maybe I'm undiagnosed ADHD. It's quite possible. My husband and older daughter are definitely diagnosed ADHD, and I've learned a lot more about it. And it's quite possible that the speed of the audio you're not really adhering to, because when it's faster, I am following along and I am engaged, and I can be doing the dishes and the laundry and walking the dogs at the same time, and I am fully in that story. So it might be worth checking out, especially when it is an author that you really enjoy, or even an artist that like a lot of people loved The Dutch House, which was narrated by Tom Hanks, and they like hearing Tom Hanks tell a story. So it's like books like that. There was also Tom Lake was narrated by Meryl Streep. So I've known that some people really got into audiobooks when they found them that they were narrated by somebody famous, that they really enjoy their voice and listening to them. And then they find the speed that is the appropriate speed for them. My friend's son is dyslexic, and he listens to audiobooks on 5 times speed. And she's like, how on earth? But if you give him a paper book, he will never pass the test.
Right.
And she tested him on what he was reading at 5 speed, and he was retaining it all. So it just depends. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to try that and see if things change for me. So, anything else before we go?
I love that you are putting this out there for the world to see, that you took a big chance on yourself, and you really made some very big changes that you couldn't know what the end result was going to be, and probably some of it is still a little scary. And I want your listeners to take from what I've shared today that whether it's a big change like you made where everything changes overnight, or if it's just 15 minutes a day, little baby steps to putting your own joy and your own dreams back on your priority list again, you can see significant change. Because for me, everything about my life changed in the last 5 years because I started doing that. And for you, everything changed because you made that overnight change a year ago, right? So it doesn't matter how you go about it. You just need to matter again in your own life.
That right there. You just need to matter again in your own life. I'm going to end with that because I love that. Jamie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Amanda. It's been a real pleasure.